Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. On leaving the synagogue, Jesus entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Simon's mother-in-law lay sick with a fever. They immediately told him about her. He approached, grasped her hand, and helped her up. Then the fever left her, and she waited on them. When it was evening, after sunset, they brought to him all who were ill or possessed by demons. The whole town was gathered at the door. He cured many who were sick with various diseases, and he drove out many demons, not permitting them to speak, because they knew him. Rising very early before dawn, he left and went off to a deserted place where he prayed. Simon and those who were with him pursued him, and on finding him said, "Everyone is looking for you." He told them, "Let us go on to the nearby villages, that I may preach there also. For this purpose have I come." So he went into their synagogues, preaching and driving out demons throughout the whole of Galilee. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
As was mentioned yesterday, a new dawn was breaking for the people of Israel with the call of Samuel. We've just been through the decade, or the century rather, of the judges. A judge, remember, was a military general, and Israel at that time was a loose confederation of 12 tribes. And during this period, we're talking again the 1100s BC, the people would be doing well for a while, then they would disobey and revolt. God would call a judge then to bring them back to spiritual sanity. Then they would disobey again, and then he would call another judge, and it would go on and on and on. And finally, we come to the conclusion that something needed to be done, something different. So Samuel was what we would call the last judge of Israel. We mentioned yesterday that the loose confederation of the 12 tribes was growing weak. They were surrounded by a number of nations who were kingdoms, and eventually they were going to ask God that they too could be a kingdom with a king. So that's the background of this. Not only is the confederation becoming weak, but the priesthood is becoming weak. Notice the symbolism in that first reading. Eli is lying outside the sanctuary, not inside. Not only is he lying outside the temple, but his eyes are growing dim. They're growing weak. And they're growing weak again to symbolize the weakness of the priesthood. Eli had 2 sons over which he had no control whatsoever, much like some of our parents today who have absolutely no control over their children. Phinehas and Hophni are sons who are not the, let's say, best examples of being priests. So the priesthood is growing weak, it's growing dim, And this is symbolized by not only the eyes of Eli growing dim, but notice the lamp of God has not yet been extinguished. It's almost at the point of being extinguished. Things have become corrupt. And so now, whenever that happens, God always intervenes, as he does even in our church, and he will call forth certain people to bring the church, or in this case Israel, back to some kind of stability. And so we have now the call of Samuel. Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. That could very well be the prayer of everybody in this church this morning as we begin a new day. God will call each one of us this day to do certain things. They might even be mundane things. And like Samuel, we will say, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. We will hear many voices today, and somehow or another we have to have the Holy Spirit to discern which voices are the true voices and which are the ones that are not. Perhaps the voices of social media, the voice of the newspaper, the voice of the media, the mainstream media. But we come to Mass this morning to listen to the true voice, Jesus, the truth. And then we come to the Gospel and we notice that in order to listen, we have to be quiet. We have to set time aside for prayer, even relaxation. And even Jesus, in all of his ministering, takes time out to go to a distant place away from the crowd, as we're doing now at this Mass, and regaining his energy as he prays to his Father. Some people ask, why did God have to pray to God? Jesus, in his human nature, always needed to pray to the Father. He had the beatific vision. His face was always toward the Father. But he needed that time and that rest away from the crowds to gain the energy that he needed to continue his ministry. That's why we're here this morning. We're here this morning doing exactly what Jesus did, regaining our energy, our spiritual energy, so that whatever it is that God wills for us this day, we will have the strength to do. The key is to listen to the true voice speaking to us, so that like Samuel, we also can say, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. God bless you.